Hey guys, I'm Charlie and I'm just here doing my mini lesson for EDPS 390. And as you can see on the screen, we're going to be doing plot points. Unfortunately, my camera has been like messing up when I try to like present it as a slideshow, so I can't necessarily do that. I have to do like this whole screen view type thing with here and not as like the full screen slideshow. But bear with me with that. It's unfortunate, but we'll get through it. So to start off, we have just some objectives for like what this should be teaching these students here. First, we have students will be able to identify specific plot points, which we'll be getting through those later and see exactly like what they do. And then students will be able to evaluate the importance plot points have to stories, so they will be able to see like each individual plot point and what they can do for a story and how they can like advance like what's going on. So like there's plot points, but first like we need to know like what is a plot. Well, the plot of a story, as it says like here, it's just the entirety of what the story it's about. It's like whatever goes on the story, whatever happens in the story, like whatever like the story is just doing for you, and like whatever content it has is the plot, like time, play, like place. It has all of these points in it that contribute to it, and it's what makes a story itself. Um, and then we have just aspects of plot. They can there's 6 points here, and we'll get to this pyramid in just a second. But they go in setting, exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, and denouement. They will be explained throughout the slideshow, but here's just the introduction for them. And they can all, except for the setting, because the setting can be found throughout the story, they can all be found what's called Freytag's pyramid, which is what we use to help identify the plot and whatnot. So like the introduction here, it's just another word for exposition. Rising action, climax, falling, or resolution is also the falling action, and then the ending of the story, and like ending of the story and resolution both can be as like the denouement as well. And this is what a lot of like English, like a lot of people just use for. It's a very tangible and like easy way to visualize how a plot like goes linearly, so that you can use it to identify things that happen. So first we're going into the setting. The setting is just like the direct time and place, like where something is occurring during like a time in the story. And the setting occurs all the way throughout because you need obviously like something to occur, like you need a place for it to occur and like a time for it to occur. So it can change throughout the story and it doesn't need to stay consistent throughout. But it's important because it gives you a point of like reference to look back into when you're thinking about the story itself, because like for example here we have this snowman in this thing. What you see, it's probably somewhere cold. It's a snowman. Yeah, typically snowmen can be made when it's um cold outside, but it's typically like a Christmas thing or whatnot. So if you have a Christmas movie and you want the setting to be realistic, you wouldn't want it to be in a random like desert in like in June or something, because it just wouldn't make sense for a Christmas movie. Or you'd have to like have some in-depth explanation as to why you're having that setting there. So the exposition here, it's when the like all the characters get introduced, when conflict will most likely be introduced. And this just allows you to be able to have like a start. It just allows you to have like a starting framework for the story. Because you can have these characters be here and you won't just be thrust in. You can have background knowledge of them. You will have some like background knowledge of everything, so that as the story progresses you won't just be lost. And the exposition is important because it introduces all of these aspects. And I'm going to go a little bit out of order, but I feel like it's necessary to go out of order a little bit here to help explain the following two after this. So you have the climax. The climax is the huge like tipping point of the story. It's like, or the turning point. It's where like conflict will most likely be solved, or like it doesn't have to be when a like big fight happens, but it can also be like a mindset change, or like specifically when a character starts to head in a different direction. But like a famous example here, we have Harry Potter and Voldemort. The climax here would be when Harry Potter fights Voldemort. Um, and like Harry Potter beating Voldemort is this huge conflict that's been set up through all 7 books. And when it finally happens, spoiler alert, or whatever, the books have been out for however many years. But when it finally happens and occurs, the climax is Harry Potter beating Voldemort. So that's when the like That's when the story shifts, takes a different direction. Like, you have to be one or the other. Like, is he going to beat Voldemort, or is he going to succumb to Voldemort? And we're going again like slightly backwards, but the rising action, it comes before the climax, just like letting you know. And I just wanted to like preface that, but it also, I feel like you need to know what the climax is to help better understand the rising action itself. It's things that are leading up to the climax, like between the exposition and the climax itself. And in these are typically like when like a character arc or when a story arc occurs or whatnot. So we think of things like specific example like Kung Fu Panda, when Kung Fu Panda or when Poe has his like training arc or whatnot, or when characters themselves have training arcs waiting to fight like the big boss. That's typically a like rising action, because they will be trying to better themselves. They might enter or they might experience a few like hiccups upon like on the way, and get set back a little bit. But if they keep persevering and they keep rising to that climax, and that's why it's called the rising action, because the story itself just keeps rising to that suspense, like point of suspense that they need to overcome at some point. And the falling action is kind of the inverse of the rising action, but it still ties directly to the climax because it's what occurs directly after the climax. Because you'll see what the results of what happening in the climax does. Um, so, for example, Harry Potter after Voldemort dies, like the characters are in relief. There might be some that are sad because of their like lost loved ones or whatnot, but it's just how the conflict affects the rest of the story, and that's what the falling action is. It's showing you characters are like how they are like resolving their issues, what the resolution is, and that's why a resolution is another name for this, because you are just able to see what tangible effects occur due to the climax happening, which is what the whole point of the story. You want to see what happens after the climax. You want to get to the end of the story. And speaking of the end of the story, that's what the denouement is. It's genuinely just where everything wraps up. There's no story progression happening. There should like everything should be coming to an end here, which is different from the falling action because you can see like a little bit of progress being made, like what's occurring, like things that are happening, but the denouement is genuinely just the end of the story, like everything's done. And this is the classic example, like, oh, they walked off into the sunset, or like they lived happily ever after. It's genuinely just the very end of the story. And those them it help like that helps obviously because like the story ends and that's like where you want to get to. um so that's what plot points were and learning plot points, and I hope this helped. And to all of you, thank you.